A man lies motionless on the scorching African savanna, his breathing shallow, his body burning with fever. Around him, six of nature's most powerful predators form a perfect circle. One massive male lion, his golden mane catching the dying light, and five lionesses, their amber eyes fixed intently on the fallen figure. But here's what will absolutely shock you. These apex predators aren't preparing for a kill. What happens next will challenge everything you think you know about the relationship between humans and wild animals. This is the incredible true story of Ranger Marcus Thompson and the day when the very creatures he'd spent his life protecting became his unlikely guardians. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. Marcus Thompson wasn't your average wildlife ranger. For 12 years, this soft-spoken man from Montana had called Kenya's Masai Mara his home. While most tourists came to snap photos and leave, Marcus had something different, a connection with the wildlife that bordered on the supernatural. You see, Marcus had a gift. He could read the savanna like a book, understanding the subtle language of the wild in ways that amazed even veteran conservationists. The local Maasai elders called him Simbamze, the old lion, not because of his age, but because of his wisdom and the respect he commanded from the big cats. But Marcus carried a secret burden. 3 years earlier, he'd contracted a rare form of malaria, the kind that lies dormant, waiting to strike when your guard is down. The doctors in Nairobi had warned him. Stress, exhaustion, or extreme heat could trigger a relapse that could prove fatal in the remote wilderness. Marcus knew the risks, but he couldn't abandon his mission. Poaching had increased dramatically that year. Every week brought new reports of lions being poisoned, their parts sold on the black market. These weren't just statistics to Marcus. He knew these animals personally. He'd watched cubs grow into magnificent adults, witnessed the complex social dynamics of pride life, and even helped injured animals recover. There was one pride in particular that held a special place in Marcus's heart. Led by a powerful male he'd named Caesar, this group of 6 lions had become like family to him. Caesar, with his distinctive scarred left eye from an old territorial battle, ruled over 5 beautiful lionesses: Nala, the fierce huntress; Luna, the gentle mother; Kisi, the curious young adult; Amara, the wise eldest female; and Zara, the playful youngest. Marcus had been tracking this pride for over 2 years, documenting their behavior, protecting them from poachers, and ensuring their territory remained safe. Little did he know that his dedication to their well-being was about to save his own life in the most extraordinary way imaginable. It was October 15th, a day that started like any other, but would end as one of the most remarkable wildlife encounters ever recorded. Marcus had been tracking Caesar's pride for 3 days straight, following reports of poachers in their territory. The stress was mounting, the heat was unbearable, and he'd barely slept or eaten. As the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, Marcus felt the familiar warning signs. His vision began to blur, his hands started trembling, and that telltale burning sensation spread through his body. The malaria was back, and this time it hit him like a freight train. Miles from his vehicle, with no radio signal and temperatures soaring past 105 degrees Fahrenheit, Marcus realized he was in serious trouble. He tried to reach his emergency beacon, but his coordination was failing. His legs gave out first, then his arms, and finally, consciousness began to slipping away. As he collapsed onto the sun-baked earth, one thought echoed in his fading mind. This is how it ends. Alone, in the middle of nowhere. But Marcus wasn't alone. Caesar's pride had been resting in the shade of a nearby acacia grove when they caught his scent. Not the familiar, calm scent they'd grown accustomed to, but something different, something wrong. The smell of sickness, of distress, of a creature in mortal danger. What happened next defies every textbook on animal behavior. Instead of moving away from the potentially threatening situation, Caesar stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the landscape. With a low, rumbling call, he summoned his pride. One by one, Nala, Luna, Casey, Amara, and Zara emerged from their resting spots. And then, in a scene that would make wildlife experts question everything they thought they knew, these 6 apex predators began walking directly towards Marcus's collapsed form. The male arrived first, his 400-pound frame moving with surprising gentleness. He approached Marcus slowly, almost cautiously, before settling down just 3 feet from the ranger's head. Then came the lionesses, each taking a position around Marcus's body, forming a protective circle that would become his lifeline. But the real test was yet to come. As the sun began to set, painting the savanna in shades of gold and crimson, a new threat emerged from the gathering darkness. The distinctive whooping calls echoed across the landscape, a sound that strikes fear into the heart of every creature on the African plains. Hyenas. A pack of 12 spotted hyenas had caught the scent of what they believed to be an easy meal.
These weren't your average scavengers. Spotted hyenas are formidable predators in their own right, with bite forces stronger than most big cats. They're intelligent, cunning, and absolutely relentless when they sense vulnerability. To them, the motionless figure surrounded by lions represented an opportunity they couldn't resist. The pack approached with the confidence of seasoned hunters, their distinctive sloping silhouettes becoming visible in the twilight. Their leader, a massive matriarch weighing nearly 180 pounds, let out a bone-chilling laugh that announced their intentions. But Caesar wasn't having it. The moment the hyenas came within 50 yards, the massive lion rose to his feet. His mane bristled, making him appear even larger than his already imposing size. The sound that came from his throat wasn't just a roar, it was a declaration of war. What followed was one of the most intense standoffs ever witnessed in the wild. The 5 lionesses immediately flanked their male, creating an impenetrable wall of muscle, claws, and teeth around Marcus's still form. Nala, the pride's primary huntress, positioned herself at Marcus's feet, her lips pulled back in a snarl that revealed canine teeth as long as a human finger. The hyenas, realizing they weren't dealing with a typical scavenging opportunity, began their psychological warfare. They circled the lions, calling to each other in their eerie language, testing for weaknesses, looking for any opportunity to dart in and claim their prize. For 20 agonizing minutes, the 2 species faced off in a deadly game of chess. Every few minutes, one of the younger hyenas would make a feint toward Marcus, only to be met by a coordinated response from the lionesses that sent the scavenger retreating with its tail between its legs. But here's what's truly remarkable. Throughout this entire confrontation, not once did any of the lions step on Marcus or abandon their protective formation. It was as if they understood that the human in their care was completely helpless and depended entirely on their protection. Just when the situation seemed at its most desperate, something magical happened that no wildlife documentary could have scripted. Luna, the gentlest of the lionesses and a mother herself, did something that left even the hyenas stunned. She carefully laid down beside Marcus, positioning her warm body against his fevered form. Then, in a gesture so tender it would bring tears to your eyes, she began to groom his hair with her massive tongue. This wasn't aggressive behavior. This was pure, instinctive nurturing. Luna was treating Marcus exactly as she would treat one of her own cubs who was sick or injured. The rough texture of her tongue, designed to clean fur and stimulate blood flow, was providing exactly the kind of stimulation Marcus's failing circulatory system needed. Caesar, seeing his mate's behavior, moved closer and added his own warmth to Marcus's other side. The remaining lionesses adjusted their positions, creating a living furnace that began to combat the dangerous drop in Marcus's core body temperature. The hyenas, witnessing this unprecedented display of interspecies care, finally understood they were facing something beyond their comprehension. One by one, they slunk back into the darkness, their opportunity lost to something far more powerful than tooth and claw: compassion. But the lions weren't done yet. As Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness throughout the night, he would later recall fleeting moments of awareness, the sound of deep, rumbling purrs that seemed to vibrate through his entire body, the warmth of massive paws gently placed across his torso, and most remarkably, the sensation of being carefully moved into different positions throughout the night to prevent pressure sores and maintain circulation. These apex predators had somehow transformed into the most attentive medical team imaginable. As dawn broke over the Masai Mara, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and orange, the sound of helicopter rotors cut through the morning air. Marcus's research partner, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, had raised the alarm when he failed to return to base camp. The helicopter pilot, veteran bush pilot Jake Morrison, couldn't believe what he saw through his binoculars. "Sarah," he called over the radio static, "you're not going to believe this, but I've got visual on Marcus, and he's surrounded by lions. They're not attacking him, they're protecting him." As the helicopter circled lower, something even more extraordinary happened. Caesar, hearing the approach of the aircraft, stood up and looked directly at the mechanical bird hovering above. But instead of the aggressive territorial response you'd expect from a wild lion, he seemed to understand that help had arrived. One by one, the Pride members began to move away from Marcus, not fleeing in panic, but stepping back with what can only be described as dignity and purpose. It was as if they understood that the human in their care was completely helpless and depended entirely on their protection. Marcus spent 2 weeks in intensive care, his body fighting off the most severe malaria relapse he'd ever experienced. The doctors were amazed by his survival, especially given that he'd spent nearly 12 hours unconscious in the wilderness.
But here's what's truly incredible. When the medical team examined Marcus, they found evidence of the lion's care everywhere. His body temperature, which should have dropped to dangerous levels during the cold African night, had been maintained at near normal levels. His circulation, which should have been severely compromised by lying motionless for so long, showed signs of having been regularly stimulated. Most remarkably, his body showed no signs of dehydration, leading doctors to theorize that the lion's constant grooming had somehow helped maintain his body's moisture balance through one of the most challenging nights of his life. Dr. Jennifer Hayes, the tropical disease specialist who treated Marcus, put it best. "In 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like this. By all medical logic, Marcus should not have survived that night. Those lions didn't just protect him from external threats, they actively treated him, using instincts and behaviors that somehow perfectly complemented what his body needed to survive." When Marcus finally returned to the Masai Mara 6 weeks later, his first stop wasn't his research station or his camp. It was Caesar's territory. What happened when Marcus encountered the pride that saved his life can only be described as magical. Caesar approached him slowly, cautiously, as if checking to make sure his former patient had truly recovered. Then, in a gesture that brought tears to every witness's eyes, the massive lion gently bumped his great head against Marcus's chest, the same greeting he would give to a Pride member returning from a long absence. Luna, not to be outdone, rubbed against Marcus's legs, purring loud enough to be heard 20 yards away. Each lioness, in turn, came to greet the human they had collectively saved, as if celebrating his return to health. Marcus still works in the Masai Mara today, but his relationship with the wildlife has been forever changed. He's no longer just an observer or protector. He's been accepted as something far more precious: family. The footage of his reunion with Caesar's pride has been viewed millions of times online, inspiring conservationists around the world and proving that the bonds between humans and animals can transcend every barrier we thought existed. Marcus often says that October night taught him the most important lesson of his life. In the wild, survival isn't just about being the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes it's about recognizing when another living creature needs help and having the courage to provide it regardless of species. If Marcus's story has touched your heart the way it has millions of others, there's something you can do to help. Wildlife conservation organizations across Africa are working tirelessly to protect lions like Caesar and his pride, but they can't do it alone. Consider supporting organizations like the African Wildlife Foundation, Panthera, or the Kevin Richardson Wildlife Sanctuary. Every dollar helps fund anti-poaching efforts, habitat preservation, and research that helps us better understand these magnificent creatures. Share this story with friends and family, because the more people who understand the incredible intelligence and compassion of wild animals, the more advocates we have for their protection. And remember, Marcus's story isn't just about one man and 6 lions. It's about the incredible connections that exist in our natural world, waiting to be discovered, protected, and celebrated. What will your contribution to this story be? If this incredible tale moved you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We have more amazing wildlife stories coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of the wild.